All right, welcome, welcome. Oh, wow, how are you? My head is right in the shot. Welcome to this Woman Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming to you from the Corona Bunker Studios here in my living room. We're working little by little every day to make it a more visually pleasing show. Little view of what I'm looking at outside during the day when I'm doing the show for you guys. But lots going on that we got to talk about. Market's in okay hands. I don't even want to waste any time with that. Big breaking news. Oh my God, COVID is spiking everywhere. COVID is the new catchphrase. As I mentioned, as soon as George Floyd was buried, then COVID was reincarnated as the new hot craze to crush President Trump. And I just want to, all the time you're listening to the fake news, and I hear people saying they're sick and tired of the fake news. So am I. I'm trying every single day to be at least one voice out there that can call out the bull, all right? And I wish I could say more, but I can't. But CDC website, take a look. Take a look. This is what the CDC website is saying about COVID deaths, okay? And this is, up until June 27th. We went from May, 2 months basically, we went from 10,000 a week down to last week, 157 deaths. So cases are everywhere. Yes, there's more testing. And by the way, when Barack Obama and Joe Biden were in charge and we had the H1N1, the swine flu, just for those of you keeping score at home, 60 million people were infected. Much lower death rate, different type of strain, but it reached 60 million people. So that's what you have to get if Joe Biden comes in. Now, if the whole leftist agenda comes in with Joe Biden and the fake news keeps beating the crap out of our president, then business owners better run for the hills because we got major problems. And here in New York, the new rallying cry for the Black Lives Matter is defund the police. And right here in New York, the capital of the world, it's already started happening. Last night, in a late night vote, the New York City Council agreed on a new budget where Mayor Bill de Blasio actually sliced $1 billion from the NYPD budget. Okay, so now if you live in New York, if you live in New York City, you can see what's going on downtown. It's complete mayhem. They're occupying City Hall. They're in the streets. They're breaking things. They're projectors. I mean, there's so much craziness going on, and we need less cops, okay? I think there were 112 shootings in the last 9 days, which is like, I think, 192% increase over this same 9 days last year, so almost double, okay? And more coming soon to a theater near you because the top two candidates to be the next mayor after de Blasio, Jumaane Williams, public advocate, and Corey Johnson, speaker of the New York City Council, both bashed de Blasio and said he didn't go far enough. So taking $1 billion, 1/6, I believe, 16% of the NYPD budget, canceling a whole class of people. We had a whole bunch of new cops that was supposed to be coming in this summer. 51% of the NYPD are minorities these days, so I wonder where all the equal rights folks are, that all these people just got their jobs canned and they were waiting and planning for their families. But in New York, they're defunding the police. It's a movie that's coming soon to a theater near you, and if we don't reject Joe Biden, then this will have a cascading effect on our society that literally could end it as we know it. We're going to take a quick break right here. I'm going to come back right after this with more Liquid Lunch just for you. Lots going on, and the flag is waving proudly at my house now every single day, as you can see out there in my backyard. But the flag is under attack, and for those of you who don't really dig deep into this stuff like I try to do, if you really look behind Black Lives Matter, You dig up 3 women who are admitted and avowed Marxists who started the whole Black Lives Movement, and they're professional organizers. And they, at their own words, and I'll show you the videos in a day or two, I have them, they're Marxists. And many people are getting behind this movement. I don't think they really understand what's happening, but it's not just about defund the police. It's not just about equal justice. It's not about social justice. What it's really about is breaking down the nuclear family in the United States, and they know that's where our strength is. So behind all of this, it's much more than just a fight for black lives. It's to change our society, Western society, as we know it. So I'll keep you posted as much as I can on this stuff. But, you know, every week on Woman Wednesday, we have one of my favorite guests, and she joins me right now to talk about, among other things, Zen Sams is with us, to talk about this new Netflix documentary where I guess Malcom X was actually one of the forefathers of the U.S. movement of, you know, the fight for racial justice. And there's, I guess, a new Netflix series out there, Zen, that you're going to tell us about. Yeah.
So questions have been raised as a result of this new documentary series about the murder of civil rights icon Malcom X in Harlem 55 years ago, so much that it prompted the Manhattan District's Attorney Office to reinvestigate the case. The 6-part Netflix series called Who Killed Malcolm X disputes the narrative, basically, that convicted the 3 men who received life sentences for the murder of the activist, who basically was shot moments after he took the stage at the Audubon Ballroom in New York on February 21, specifically 1965. And that was, you know, when history changed. So there's a man by the name of Muhajid Abdul Halim. Back then, he was known as Talmadge X. Hayer, and Thomas Hagen admitted to the murder decades ago, but they both insisted on the innocence of the other 2 men. The other 2 men was Mohammed Abdul Aziz, known as Norman 3X Butler, and Khalil Islam, formerly known as Thomas 15X Johnson. So the series kind of insinuates that 4 members of a Nation of Islam mosque in Newark, New Jersey, played a role in the murder. And a spokesman for the Manhattan DA, Cyrus Vance Jr., familiar with our friend Cyrus Vance when we were covering Harvey Weinstein, said that after meeting with the Innocence Project, and it's an organization that seeks exoneration for wrongly convicted and incarcerated people, they determined that the district attorney's office will begin a preliminary review of the matter, and that's where it's at right now. So, but that's the power of Hollywood.
So, Zen, let me ask you this. When you bring up the Manhattan DA's office, you were covering it in depth for us when, you know, the whole Harvey Weinstein was going down. And I think I remember pretty clearly that we were in agreement that, you know, DA Vance here in New York was, you know, acting pretty favorably to Harvey Weinstein for quite some time. He refused to bring charges against him. Harvey Weinstein was a big donor to him. So is this a grandstand for black people to get black votes? Or because as far as I could see, there's nothing but waste, fraud, and abuse going on in the Manhattan DA's office.
You're 100% right, John. We are on the same page in this particular case. This Cyrus Vance Jr., you know, I've heard his name way too many times. When he had the ability to do something about Harvey Weinstein, he shut it down. He didn't do it. He looked the other way, turned a blind eye, and now wants to take a victory lap. And just yesterday, the women were awarded the $19 million in settlements for all the women that had accused him. But that's a different story. But back to Vance, you're right. I think this is a grandstand, and I don't think that, look, yeah, he's going to reopen the case. Do you think he wants to be bothered with it? Probably not, but it's what he must say. And this is a man that says a lot of things that other people want to hear, and he doesn't really, you know, do things because he believes in them, and it's been proven time and time again.
So you know what? I know we got other things to talk about, but I can tell you this. With all this talk, you live in New York like I do. They just cut $1 billion from the NYPD budgets here in New York City. So they're already winning on the defund the police front, right? Which is bad news for us, our families, our home values, all these things, because crime is skyrocketing, right? And in the Manhattan DA's office, I know of multiple cases where people have been surveilled for years, and then no charges brought against them, but they were trying to mar them, they were trying to drag their name through the mud, they were trying to screw them over, right? And I wonder if the better thing to do is defund the DA, because we don't know what's going on in those prosecutors' office.
Corruption is not on the front lines, and you are 100% on the money to say that. The corruption right now is behind the scenes. We've seen it over and over again. So, people are misdirecting their anger. But yes, look, some police have overstepped, have really, contributed to this hatred and to the racial profiling and the bias that's going on in this world right now. I get it. But there's so many wonderful, beautiful cops that, and this is going to segue into our next story.
Right, the cops got to do. To me, the cops got to do their jobs, right? And then it gets into these politicized DA's office where all these people are getting cushy salaries. They're wasting millions of dollars a year doing wiretaps and this and that on people. How about more cops, so that keeps people in line, and the people they arrest, less prosecutors, so the prosecutors really focus in on real crimes, and then it's kind of an equal distribution of justice for everyone.
Yeah, and you know what? The police go to the police academy and get trained and get basically given the mentality from the beginning. They come in as raw meat, as diamonds in the rough, and then they get taken into the system, and the corruption from behind the scenes trickles into the way that the police treat and think, towards civilians.
Yeah,
so
and now,
if they had proper management behind, all of this would go away. And if it was not corrupted and being governed from a place of truth, it would be a whole different story.
So, and this all goes into the cops are the big bad wolf. This all foments into basically the brainwashing of a new generation of kids. Absolutely. And you wanted to talk about this video that's gone viral of a little boy in Connecticut.
This is so heartbreaking. So a 9-year-old boy who was playing basketball in his driveway in Connecticut hid from a passing police car. And this has gone viral after his father shared the video on social media. Now the father, his dad, Stacy Pierre Lewis, posted the footage on Instagram asking, why does he feel like he has to hide when he isn't doing anything wrong? And the family's home security system caught this heartbreaking image, and basically this little boy who's in the 5th grade was reacting as the police car passed by, and he went and literally hid and ducked behind a car that was parked. Now, when the dad got home, the boy said, because they killed George Floyd.
Wow.
And that leveled the father. I mean, what do you say to that? And it's only when the car goes all the way out of sight that he goes back to playing ball. And his dad is at work now watching this entire thing take place on, the remote security system. And the notification goes off that there's a motion in the garage. So the father is watching this in real time. And then he thought about it and decided not to post it right away. And when he did post it,
it went viral.
He's a respectful father of 2. He waited a few days. LeBron James broke his heart, and he wrote a heartwarming letter to the family. And ultimately, people are grateful that this happened because it sets up an environment where you can have an uncomfortable but very necessary conversation with your kid. And shortly after it happened, and this is the silver lining, you're going to like this story. I know you like happy endings.
Oh, I love happy endings. I love myself a happy ending.
A police officer in the neighborhood stopped by to visit and spoke to the little boy, and they had a conversation, and the goal was just to be honest with discretion, but you want the children to still remain innocent. But a police officer did reach out and speak to the boy, and so it ended, better than it began.
That is a beautiful ending, and they lived happily ever after.
Yes, but we need the police, and I told Alexa that. She heard them chanting, defund the police, who will keep us safe, we will keep us safe, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, if somebody came up to me right now and stole my bag, do you think another civilian would come to mommy's rescue?
No. One of your bodyguards would probably tackle him 2 feet away, but, all right. We got to leave it there. You're the bomb. Next time, hopefully, Nico will get the actual viral video into the viral video segment, but we'll work on that.
But I didn't realize we could have put the B-roll so quickly.
You usually send us like 50 assets. Now you send us none. You're slacking. I love you, Zen. I'll talk to you soon. Quick
Bye.
break,
Love
more
you
Liquid
too,
Lunch.
John.
Erin Elmore, right after this.
5, 4, 3, 2.
You're on Facebook.
Okay, can you put me on Facebook or no?
Just Shaun's.
Put the split screen up, Nico.
Yeah, give me a second. I got.
No, the one we made earlier.
I know. I'm showing you something real quick.
So, by the way, to everyone watching out there,
That's it. And then
in Facebook land, thanks for sticking with us through these commercial breaks. But, hi, Lainey Spencer, Chris Russo, Charlie Cavallo, Frankie Morano's watching, Corey, Keith, Susan's been there all day, Mike Mazzelli, Shaun, Nicky Camerano keeps saying he's going to come by, but he never comes by. Carl is there, Carol Jean, Rita.
Aaron's supposed to be this segment, right?
Amazing, yeah. So there was some groundbreaking things happened in the last commercial, right after the last commercial. I asked Nico why we hadn't got that video of the kid supposedly hiding behind the car from the cop car, which you would think would be a poignant piece to have when you're talking about a video that went viral. And Zen usually overtaxes my staff by sending them like 20 different things as assets, which is good preparation. A lot of guests don't prep at all.
90 seconds.
But
No error.
she didn't send it. Did you send her the link? Did you send Erin the Zoom link? That would be the trick there. So our next guest should be with us momentarily. I added, she was a late ad because I asked her to join, but I guess Nico.
I have sent it to her actually, but not today. I'll
Right.
resend
So
it.
you might have to give it to her right now. So anyway, the groundbreaking part of what happened was Zen actually sent the story to Nico. You know, a lot of people like pitch Nico to a story that they want to talk about, and then he has to go through them and use his judgment and see what I will accept. And then she didn't send the video. And then I said, I can't believe Zen didn't send us the video. She always sends us stuff. And Nico said something, uttered the words that I've never heard before on a first time. He
30
said,
seconds.
it was my fault. So he completely took the blame, which is big. We might have a cake later this week to
How
celebrate.
happy are you right now?
I know. I feel like you're growing as a young man into someone that is learning how to take responsibility.
15 seconds.
Give me the thumbs up when we have Erin, please. Ho, ho, and a bottle of rum. No, I'm not doing rum today. I am doing the summer favorite, black cherry today, the White Claws. I'm sucking these things down like they're water. Like they go down so easily and smoothly. My buddy Corey Windelspecht is on our Facebook audience today, and he has a great little video podcast going about, he tests out all different spiked sodas and hard seltzers every day. It's absolutely fantastic and funny. And if you knew Corey before he was the bearded man, I actually find a lot of humor in his costuming for this show also, because he looks like a grizzly bear. But check that out. You know, a lot of people send me feedback. We're waiting for Erin Elmore to join us right now. She's the new executive director of USA Strong, talking to us about all the crap that's going on between us and China. They're our major enemy right now. But everyone sends me memes and stuff, and I like to try to include the audience so that they feel good and know that I'm at least doing my part. And, you know, with all these statues getting ripped down all over the place, they're taking, everybody's protesting and everything else. And now our world has gone so zany that the birds have actually got into the protesting. And the pigeons in New York City are actually doing Occupy a Statue right now. And if anybody comes near the special statues that they like to sit on and crap all over, apparently it's going to be like, you know, the movie The Crows. 1 billion pigeons will come down and attack any parks workers that try to remove their statue. So even the pigeons are protesting here in New York. So, you know, wherever you live, if you got something crazy going on that you want to protest, come on down. The price is right. It's free. It's a summer of love. We're defunding the police. We're occupying City Hall. It's just a nirvana for everyone who doesn't care about America. And it's just what's going on here in New York is absolutely crazy. I see it starting to happen in other parts of the country also. And that's my head in the other shop. But it is raining cats and dogs here in New York. Thunder and lightning. The way you love me is frightening. That was an old song, knock on wood. But wood is what's the big meme. We talked about the wood the other day. It turns out the wood was actually, for those of you who missed the show the other day, this big naked black guy, wood on a bed is the name of the meme. Turns out that he was quite a guy, and he only did those photos because he was in some severe financial trouble, and he died in 2016, and his family came up short like $1,500 for his headstone or something. And George Floyd's family, I think, has now 15 or $20 million. So maybe everybody should throw a little wood the Woods way, because he's probably put a smile on a lot more faces than anybody else throughout this Corona COVID scare. Do we have Erin? We do not have Erin. Okay. Erin Elmore is going to join us shortly. What about that Max Rose? Do we have that Max Rose thing? Congress gone wild across the whole country. There was a vote yesterday while everybody's screaming about Trump found out that there was a bounty on U.S. soldiers. All right, we'll get back to this in an hour or two. But joining us right now, the brand new, shiny executive director of USA Strong, one of my favorites, been with us from the beginning. Erin Elmore is going to join us in one moment, from what I understand. And Erin, there she is. Okay, we have Erin Elmore. We have connection. Hi there. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Thank you for joining, Madam Executive Director. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on the new gig, keeping USA strong. Tell us a little bit about your new organization.
Well, I am the executive director of USA Strong. And basically what we're here to do is we're going to put China on the defensive while helping the American middle class. We want to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. We want to make sure the United States enters fair trade deals. We really just want to make sure that the American worker has the opportunity to be great again. And also, by the way, I think a big component of that is also immigration.
Got it. Well, look, I think the last thing people are going to talk about right now is immigration. But as we look forward into the future, the way I see it, Erin, China begrudgingly entered into a trade agreement, which they signed off on phase 1 in December, that significantly, hampered their ability to rip us off. They weren't going to fool with their currency anymore. They weren't going to steal our IP anymore. They were going to take some tariffs. And that happens in December. And lo and behold, we wind up with the Kung Flu come January, I think the two are linked, personally.
Well, there's a lot of back and forth about what actually happened, but it seems pretty clear at this point. What used to be considered a conspiracy theory is that this was expelled from a lab in Wuhan. Did it happen maliciously? Perhaps not. But the story is that China did have control of this, and they denied to us for a very long time that there was human-to-human transmission. They were allowing people to fly outside of Wuhan into places like the United States and Europe, but limited travel domestically. What does that tell you? This has nothing to do with the Chinese people, who are a wonderful group of people. It has everything to do with the Chinese Communist government.
Right, and I mean, you know, White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, someone very close to Trump, came right out and said it, that they have, intelligence has evidence that China was actually trying to corner the global market on PPE before they even told us that it was humanly transmittable.
Right, and these are factual statements that we know of at this point. So there is a lot of culpability. And what's great about my new endeavor is that it is bipartisan. According to the Pew Research Center, 91% of Americans have an unfavorable view of China. What does that tell you? There is a huge sentiment here that people are fed up and upset with what's going on over there. Additionally, a Gallup poll said only 1/3 of United States citizens view China favorably. So these are polls done by well-respected institutions that are telling you America is fed up.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, a lot of this is getting clouded. I think the left-wing media has a vested interest in helping Joe Biden, and they want to keep our eye off the ball everywhere, because if we really start looking at what's happening in China and the close relationship with Joe Biden and his family, whether you're a bipartisan, a tripartisan, and independent, it sure looks like China wants Joe Biden to be the president, if you ask me.
Of course they do. I mean, he has quotes that have gone out that said China is not a threat to us. I mean, they call him Beijing Biden. That's one of the monikers that are circling around these days. He seems to be very pro-China, and that's why the Chinese government is thrilled to have him. He and his son flew over there in an Air Force Two several times, making backdoor deals with the Chinese government. So we know that Joe Biden is in the pocket of them, and it's very scary. And if the American people would just wake up and realize exactly what's going on, there's no way they wouldn't vote for President Trump.
No doubt about it. All right, Aaron, we only have 30 seconds left, so tell our audience how they can find out more about USA Strong, maybe make a donation, a contribution. What's happening?
Well, follow right now. I'd appreciate you following us on social media. We're Proud USA Strong everywhere. So Proud USA Strong on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Proud USA Strong, and I'm proud you're my friend, and you're always there for us. Thank you, my dear, and God bless you, and good luck. Anything you need from us, let me know.
Thank you.
That's Aaron Elmore. I'm John Tobacco. We're going to take a quick break, come back after this with Joe Hagan to talk about the digital economy. Okay, you know, try to keep it real diversified here. Talk about your markets and your money and portfolios and things that I'm doing. I'll remind you, I'm not a financial advisor, nor do I play one on TV. But when I tell you what I'm doing, it should at least give you some sense that, you know, this is what I think is good. But my goals may not be the same as yours. Things that I invest in, I'm not trying to trade them every day. I talked to you about how I'm short some stocks. I'm short. I think they're going down over the long term, and I'm looking at them every day. I don't see anything improving, so I'm not day trading them. Same thing with cryptocurrency. If you're interested in this stuff and your goals are like mine, to have a big win 20 years from now, with the understanding that the whole thing could blow up and you can get zero, you might want to take a little closer look at that, okay? Take a little closer look at, while everybody's screaming and yelling about Donald Trump not knowing about bounties on soldiers from Russia and all this other crap, and I'm going to talk about that a little later in segment 3 of hour 2. But while they're doing all this subterfuge, we got Black Lives Matter, we got Occupy City Hall, we got riots going on all over the country, and down in Washington, D.C., where all those dirty little grubbers live and operate under the radar. There was a vote yesterday that should make you want to vomit, okay? A number of Democratic representatives yesterday passed a bill, H.R. 51, that would make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. Okay, fine. No need to be a state. They could be a state, okay? And change the name of District of Columbia to Douglas Commonwealth, D.C. Okay, so Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, when you hear things like Columbia, like Columbia University, Christopher Columbus, District of Columbia, like Washington, D.C. sounds like Washington, our founding father, our first president, and District of Columbia is probably a reference to District of Columbus. Columbia is like a town for Columbus because he found the joint. So the first president and the guy that found the whole country, Washington, D.C. Now, why am I mad about this? Well, because the things that these people are talking about, these Black Lives Matter and Antifa people, are real. You want social justice? It should be there. You deserve it. You want to fight police brutality? You want to train police better for community police? You got it. We're all in agreement on that. Why are we using this opportunity to spread the message so far that you can never get to any final goals? One goal they got to yesterday, although the Senate and the House can't agree on a police reform bill, the House yesterday, in a symbolic vote, agreed or passed H.R. 51, a resolution to make Washington, D.C. a state, the 51st state, and change the name from District of Columbia to Douglas County. So, I mean, the things that are happening are crazy, but let me show that headline. This even hits more home for me right here in New York, in a place where, yesterday our New York City Council voted to defund $1 billion. Yes, $1 billion has been defunded from our police departments, okay? And that doesn't mean their salaries are going down, but what it does mean is a whole bunch of money for resources and training and surveillance and all this other stuff for good anti-crime. They killed the anti-crime unit here in New York. There's been over 100 shootings in the last 9 days, 200% increase over the same 9 last week, okay? And there it is, in case, you think I'm just doing a JT and making stuff up like the Ritz crackers and the Lucky Charms and all that stuff. This is real, folks. And right here in Staten Island, New York, we have a freshman congressman in his first term. His name is Max Rose. I call him Mini Maxie, if that means anything to those of you at home, because that's what he is. He's a little guy. And he fought bravely for our country, and I will always respect that, and I always commend him for fighting, putting his life on the line for our freedoms and liberties. But he says one thing in the district, that he's not going to be Nancy Pelosi's pup dog, and then he goes down to Washington and votes with Nancy Pelosi 97% of the time. And one of the things that our congressman right here in New York City, in Staten Island and Brooklyn, one of the things that he voted for yesterday was to rename Washington, D.C. Okay, this is the truth. Okay, and they want to call it the Douglas Commonwealth. And all due respect to Mr. Frederick Douglass, but I don't know why we have to rename states and stuff right now in the middle of a lot more serious things. But I guess they want some small victories. Speaking of small victories. Max Rose had a small victory over Dan Donovan, who was the Republican here. And now, since he's been in office, he went down to Washington and voted, along with Nancy Pelosi, to allow illegal aliens to vote in local elections. Max Rose, our congressman, voted for illegal aliens, not to prevent illegal aliens from voting in local and municipal elections. So that's one, okay? He wants illegal aliens to be allowed to vote in our local elections. Then wrote an op-ed right here in the Staten Island Advance, terrible paper, but it's the only print media we have, wrote an op-ed saying that we cannot impeach the president, it will only divide us. And it was a really soundly written piece, and I was like, wow, okay, this guy is standing up to Pelosi. Then she tugged on his chain, he went back down to Washington, and he voted for impeachment. Now he's voting to rename Washington, D.C., and if you ask me, in this one singular, my backyard issue, this is happening across our whole country. The whole Congress, a majority of them voted yesterday to rename Washington, D.C. Douglas Commonwealth, okay, and make it a state. I don't mind it being a state, but I don't know why they have to start changing names of things. But we have someone in our crosshairs here as a target. The only time you could take out a politician is in their first term. That's when they're most vulnerable. 85% of incumbents win. Okay, so once he gets to a second term, we got problems. I had a little noshings the other night, some burgers and wings with Assemblywoman Malliotakis, and you may know her more famously as Nicole, who just won the Republican primary. She's been representing Staten Island and Brooklyn for a while now, and she's putting together some campaign against him. And I look forward to the voters of my district here in Staten Island and Brooklyn to see how she towers over him in stature and in principle. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with more Liquid Lunch right after this.
Welcome back, folks. I've been taking my makeup off every day with the coronavirus wipes. I'm still corona fit.
Didn't even wipe your fake tan off.
Well, that's because that's not a fake tan. That's a real thing.
This November. And Democrats don't want to see it, at least establish it.
For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
Welcome back. We go from the business world to the federal races to Congress to the pigeons protesting at this point because they want to save their statues. And New York City is like another den of inequity back like in the Occupy Wall Street days. And you know what? I'm someone who's smart enough to know that if you ain't learning, you're dying. And I keep my ears open to all voices at all times. And one of the most favorite things I do on this show is open it up every day to Democrats and Republicans to mix it up on the news of the day. And two of the best guys we got joining me right now. John Burnett is with us. He's the managing director of One Empire Group, columnist for Newsmax, also Republican candidate for New York City Controller. And David Eisenbach, he's our own personal presidential historian, professor at Commonwealth University, and former Democratic candidate for public advocate.
Columbia University, John.
What?
Columbia University.
No, well, we're not calling anything Columbia anymore. It's Commonwealth now. You didn't hear?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Washington, D.C. is now Douglas Commonwealth. So you can't be Columbia University anymore. You're now a professor at Commonwealth University.
Man.
It's racially insensitive to name something Columbia now, I guess.
Got it.
I don't know. I'm joking around, but
I hear you.
Craziness out there. And you know, JB, I just want to let you know we missed you last week. And David was cheating on you like you can't believe. He was just yucking.
No.
He was just yucking it up with Jaden. They were
Jaden
like,
was
ring the
okay,
bell.
but it's no John Burnett. That's all I
Wow. All right. Well,
we know David propaganda this week.
yeah. And then, you know, he did so good that I had to have him back for more. So he came on in a single role. And, you know, when the cat's away, the mice must play, I guess. You know. So, guys, let's get into it. You know, Joe Biden now is the big news is there was some reports that there were bounties put on U.S. soldiers from Russia. They were offering money to the Afghan soldiers. And now Biden is saying that he's going to request a classified briefing. JB, is there any precedent for this, for vice president, a presidential candidate this far out getting briefings?
I'm quite sure that he still has some level of security clearance. It probably is unprecedented to get this deep in the weeds on such a critical issue. However, in politics in general, especially presidential politics, any and everything is political. Can be used for political purposes. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't frown upon Biden and his camp to try to use this as a political tool. However, they're probably going down the wrong path on an issue that's sensitive to all Americans.
Dave, as a presidential historian, is there any precedent for the challenger in a presidential race to get intel briefings this far out from an election?
Not this far out, but you know what does have historical precedent is the CIA sabotaging a president and his policies by using a well-timed leak. We've seen this throughout history, and I urge everybody to read this book. It's called Legacy of Ashes by Tim Weiner. And you'll see this is how the CIA operates. They don't like what Donald Trump is up to right now, and so they leak this. And what are they up to? What is Donald Trump up to? He is trying to pull out 10,000 troops from Germany. That is why this leak happened. And it's not a coincidence that this week, Mitt Romney, Republicans, and Democrats want to try to pass a bill preventing the troop withdrawal from Germany. And What are they saying? They're pointing to this leak.
Wow. JB, I don't know what's happening to this guy. I think he's coming over to the dark side a little bit. He's actually sticking up for Trump now.
Yeah, from week to week, which David are we going to get? But I would agree with David with regard to, the deep state. There's many people within the law enforcement community, the higher ranks, if you will, as well as the CIA, seemingly trying to undermine this president. We saw the phony dossier, right? And the Russia collusion allegations coming out of from somewhere. We know, small players on the front end, but we didn't know who was actually on the back end in 2016. But guess what? Russia's back in play in 2020, trying to undermine Trump again. And it's really sad because you know what? It might be an inside job this time.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. And I think as Bill Barr and the Durham probe start to circle more and more around, the James Clappers and the John Brennans of the world, they want to keep everybody's eye off the ball because I think bad things are happening there. But more importantly, Dave, it doesn't look like Biden has to come out of his house to win, according to the latest polls. All the polls, much like 2015, are saying Biden in the lead. Should he even change his strategy?
Yeah, no. Why change? The only thing he's changed is the fact that instead of doing it from the basement, he's doing it from the porch, which makes a much nicer backdrop. The fact is that Joe Biden can just be Uncle Joe. And if Americans feel economically insecure and upset, he can win in November.
Well, what about JB? Me and you, we're not esteemed academics like Professor Eisenbach there, but we know a bit about the economy. What about the fact that Joe Biden's already talking about like a 60% tax rate, not a small tax increase? The people got to understand what financial Armageddon is coming towards us with this guy.
Absolutely. That's a way to add to everything else. In terms of the long list of reasons not to vote for Biden. But you know what, with regard to what David said, it's utterly ridiculous for Biden to stay in the basement or even come up to the porch. When we look at even 2016, I think Hillary went 270 plus days without embracing the media. When it comes down to political battle, even if your opponent is messing up, you still have to put points on the board. You can't run by hiding. I think this will actually come back to Biden. He's not showing strength. He's relying on the anger and the frustration on the left, which, this really boils down to the independents and the moderate Democrats. And he has to constantly engage. He has to play offense. I don't want him to, but if I was advising his campaign, you still have to crush the doubters out there and the people that are concerned with whether or not he has dementia, whether or not he's strong enough, whether or not he can stand up against Donald Trump. Because the thing is, once he goes into those debates, once he starts fumbling, he'll have no political escrow account. Why? Because he was hiding in the basement.
Yes.
Okay, but here's the thing, John. He's winning among independents. He's winning among moderates. He's winning. Exactly. He wasn't 2 months ago, and now he is. Why would he switch up his strategy? Going out there might actually expose a little of the kind of loss of capacity.
David, money in politics.
Why cheat?
The principles of money in politics are virtually the same. Yes, you have to make decisions today, but you also have to forecast. You also have to minimize risk. You also have to say, you know what October surprise might come up. You have to make investments, and you don't make investments by hiding in the basement. You have to show strength by coming out. And what the hell is he doing, giving a press conference on a teleprompter?
Yeah, I mean, that was bizarre. It's unbelievable. He's having an open presser, and they had the teleprompter there. And I don't know if you saw, but one of the camera angles, one of the angles had a little piece of it in the side of the camera, so you knew he was on a teleprompter. And the few times he walked outside the teleprompter and tried to talk, he retreated like he was under attack to get back. Okay. Well, all right, guys, I got 1 minute left. I just want to get your thoughts on this. Supposedly 60-game baseball season. Some players are opting out. Johnny, should this season count?
You know, when I look at MLB, NBA, there's a lot of players saying, listen, we all love our sport. We all love our game. It's okay to forego a season. There's too much at risk here. Yes, there's an economic impact. There are jobs and so forth. But you know what? Everyone is not in that millennial area in terms of like between, 20 and 30. There's some senior people around. And you know what? They have a right to be concerned for themselves as well as their families.
Look, Dave, is this a real season? Last 10 seconds.
Hey, look, I just want some baseball. I need something else to think about, to discuss.
I've been loving these old games, these old series games on ESPN.
I don't care if I'm watching minor leaguers. I don't care.
There's no more minor league now either. All right. You guys are the best. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. More Liquid Lunch right after this. All right, welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco, coming to you from the Corona bunker in my house, just outside of the city limits of Manhattan, where all hell is breaking loose these days. Businesses are boarded up. Fifth Avenue looks like a ghost town. I talked to my good buddy Tim Collins, who's one of our resident Democrats who comes on the show. He's also the general manager of Bobby Van's Steakhouse. He said they tried to open up last week with this outdoor dining thing, but there are just no humans around in downtown New York City. So things are getting bad here, and many other blue states and blue mayors are letting their cities become overrun. And one of my really good friends who comes on the show all the time for us, a very respected friend, Rob Taub, joins us from a great line of Taubes that originated in Staten Island. He's a columnist.
That is true.
He's a columnist, writer, humorist, health advocate, ambassador for the American Heart Association, and also the partnership with the American Diabetes Association. And the big program is No Diabetes by Heart. Is that right still, Rob?
That's correct, John. You really know my CV better than I do.
Well, look, you take your time out of the day to give me a few minutes. I want to make sure that we're letting people know all the great things that you do. Rob, coming into this, and before we came on, we were chatting a little bit, but you would have probably some of the best insights. It seems to me, this is not anecdotal, this is 99% of the cities where these crazy autonomous zones and riots and looting, 99% of them have Democratic mayors. And I think New York City is usually a bellwether of things that happen in the rest of the country. You were around in the 60s and the 70s when New York City was a war zone. You were telling me you were riding the trains from when you were 14 years old and you were a young man.
That was 50 years ago.
Right. Do you see, from someone who's seen it all, you've seen the worst and it came back, and I feel like we peaked like the virus and now we're going to go shooting down again. Do you see a trend starting here where we could be going back to the future?
Well, there's a great book by one of my former colleagues, Michael Riedel, called Razzle Dazzle. And a lot of it is about Broadway theaters and the history of Broadway. But you can't write about Broadway without writing about the collapse of New York City and the financial collapse, because that's what happened to Times Square. And what in the 60s with Mayor Lindsay, he stopped giving the cops cost of living wage increases, and they began making less and less. And this, I believe, don't quote me, but it could have been as much as 10 years. And what does that lead to when you're not making enough money and you're disgusted with your whole environment? I'm not justifying this, but it's just what happened. Cops went on the tape. There was more corruption. The city didn't have enough money to budget for cops. There was little police protection, and the streets were unsafe. I mean, the irony now in New York real estate, my family's been in that business. I have a license in it. I've owned a lot of real estate. The most coveted piece of real estate is a brownstone. Back then in the 60s and the 70s, you could buy one for $35,000. People were terrified to live in a place like that because of home invasions. They're afraid to get out of taxis and walk from a cab to their front stoop. I mean, I see things changing dramatically. We're demonizing the police, and at least in New York City, I don't see the justification for it. Well, especially with a police force of primarily minorities, Asian, Black, Hispanic cops.
Right, 51% of the NYPD is minority. So the minority is actually the majority. And one of the things they did with this whole defunding is that they canceled the whole new crop of cops that were going to come into the academy and graduate this summer. So I almost feel like it's anti-affirmative action. They got the minority is the majority of the force. And now when some goals that they set many years ago seem to be taking root, now they're just canceling whole classes of cops for a new cause. It's crazy.
Well, I saw a very peaceful protest about 3 weeks ago on a Sunday night on 3rd Avenue. And I'm not kidding. I think there were at least 10,000 people on bicycles, primarily city bikes. So maybe Citibank's making a lot of money. Or anyway, they were chanting, "Abolish the police." So, okay, it's a peaceful protest, but also a dysfunctional protest for me. You're going to abolish the police? I mean, let's be realistic, okay? And believe me, I protested the Vietnam War. I remember I had to go get a draft card, and I was, worried I was going to have a high lottery number. So we were rioting against going to give our lives up in a foreign country for a war nobody believed in, and cops are coming around and construction workers are there. They're beating us up on Wall Street back then. We think we had a pretty legitimate reason for it. So
that was that. What was that? What was that?
Changed. Maybe I'm just one of these old geezers that talks about prefaces everything they say with years ago. Years ago, we didn't ride city bikes. We got beaten up when we were on our own feet.
Well, one thing I know for sure is you look safely tucked away on a perch high atop New York City somewhere. I see a beautiful view behind you. Where are you? On the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side?
That's the Upper West Side. It is the George Washington
That
Bridge
is the George Washington.
on a balmy day.
So you look, I'm sure you're safe and secure. over there. And by the way, Rob, thank you for joining us. But from what I understand, now you're going to be taking off to the vineyard for the weekend and hanging out with the beautiful
people. On the
people.
4th of July, I'm going to fly on JetBlue to Martha's Vineyard. I hope it's safe, but I'll be wearing my mask.
So there's a rumor floating around that your ex-wife is a Trump supporter.
I can neither confirm nor deny that for fear of my life from my family members.
Got it. All right.
How much time do we have left, John? I wanted to bring something up.
Go ahead. We got 2 minutes.
So
1 minute.
I'm concerned just about our economy and our health. And I'm a spokesman for the American Diabetes and American Heart Association. I'm not here representing them now. I'm going to give you my own opinion, but I will give you facts that we quote from the AHA, which is in 2017, Americans spent $327 billion just taking care of type 2 diabetics. 2/3 of our adult population in this country are obese. 1/3 is morbidly obese. Morbidly obese means you're 100 pounds over the weight, your ideal weight. So we've had a health crisis for a long time in this country, and it's as if many of us are standing on the precipice, on the edge of a cliff, and all it would take is a little wind to push us over. And I think we're seeing now with a lot of the morbidity rates with COVID-19. Yet what disappoints me is none of our major news carriers, from the most conservative to the most liberal, seem to be talking about the fact that we're a very unhealthy society. And this doesn't seem to be functioning as a wake-up call where people are suddenly saying, I better eat better, I better start exercising more.
Well, look, maybe we can, somewhere in there, when we're done ripping down statues and changing names of things, we can eat a little better. But enjoy your trip, my friend. I appreciate you coming on with us as always. And
my pleasure.
Hopefully when you get back, we can have you on again.
I'll be. You can call me while I'm in the vineyard. You know.
I'd love that.
Wi-Fi out there.
All right.
Maybe we can get Professor Dershowitz to join us.
That would be amazing. All right, my good buddy Rob Taub. Have a safe trip and a happy 4th of July, my friend.
Most financially successful people own assets that make them money while they sleep. They usually own real estate, vehicles, intellectual property, equipment, and more. These assets make passive income through leases, subscriptions, royalties, and fees that don't require time, energy, or attention. Your assets do the work, and you collect the check. So what kind of asset should you buy? The most valuable companies in the world, like Amazon, Google, and Apple, all have the same thing in common. They make a majority of their revenue from data technology assets, storing, collecting, processing, and providing data. It's all about the data. What if you could own data tech assets with a low upfront cost? Introducing Apex, a proprietary technology built to process and mine data and render artificial intelligence and 3D gaming at exceptionally high rates. Apex Tech has partnered with SafeTech, a subsidiary of a publicly traded company called InvestView. SafeTech's business model leverages Apex technology to disrupt the multi-trillion-dollar data tech industry, giving you the competitive advantage. SafeTech's growth strategy is to capture a significant share of the market. SafeTech will enter into a 60-month lease with owners of Apex Systems. Why would they do that? Why not just buy all the equipment themselves? The same reason most companies lease instead of own: to scale quickly without the upfront costs and for the tax benefits. So how do you get started? You purchase an Apex system. Then you can lease it to SafeTech for 60 months at a rate of $500 per month. That's a total of $30,000 paid to you over the life of the lease. So what's your responsibility besides purchasing the Apex system? Nothing. During the lease, SafeTech is responsible for any maintenance costs to keep things running for you. Just collect a check every month for the next 60 months. This tremendous financial opportunity positions you to follow the strategies of the financially successful. You can leverage data technology to produce passive income that generates revenue without your time, energy, or effort. This is what is meant by creating multiple streams of income. But the opportunity to participate will not last forever. If this concept fits your financial goals, take action today while you still have the chance.
that's it. It's a WTF. It's a Woman Wednesday WTF. And I must correct myself. I did make one mistake today that I know of. And I know Frank's watching, so I probably had a number of them, but I'm not going to point them all out. But I was corrected on our social media message board that I did not properly refer to Dr. Fauci's agency. It is the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. I kind of abbreviated the NIAID before, but in any event, Joanne Appa says she loves us at 2 hours. Don't change a thing. All right, I'm gonna follow the lead of my audience because, well, an audience, I'm nothing. And you know, usually in the last segment, I get corrected all the mistakes that I made today. I want to wish a very speedy get well to my good friend Mario Romano, who is Nico's daddy. And he had some doctor screw up a hip replacement on him, and then the hip replacement broke again, and the guy's tough as nails. But when this guy's in pain, you know something's wrong. And turns out they put the thing in wrong, apparently, and snapped his leg, and the guy... So, my buddy Mario, we love you, and get well soon, in case you're watching. And the other mistake that was made today was Nico is encouraging me to let Jess learn how to direct the show in case he has to take off or some emergency comes up. And then today, he actually convinced me to let Jess do it a little bit, and it was a colossal failure. I mean, Jess was having a stroke. She was all panicked out. I said, you fight through it. You got to do it more. There's only one way to learn. She said, no, I'm too stressed out, and I can't do it. And in any event, we try. What? She's making all kinds of hand signals at me. What happened?
I didn't say that.
Well, I don't think the audience can hear you. You're going to have to talk into the mic if you... She doesn't want to talk either. All right, well, look, I poke fun at my team once in a while, but if anything's screwed up, it's really my fault. I'm taking the blame, you know. But no, my mistake was not letting Jess do it a little earlier, and then she wouldn't be so frazzled today when Nico... And then, you know, that's a good partner. Nico was really trying to get her to step up a game a little bit. And the other mistake we had today was that Zen Sam's, our regular faithful guest on Wednesday for Woman Wednesday. She's one of the best, model, actress, supermom, all that good stuff. But she usually sends us like a boatload of assets. I want this photo, I want this picture, I want this, that, and the other thing. And then I say, all right. The guests don't get to send in 20 assets. And I kind of carve it down to a couple. And today Zen comes on to talk about a viral video. And lo and behold, we don't have the video. So I don't know if it's Zen's fault or Nico's fault. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. And then Nico has a groundbreaking moment where he actually, without any back talk or lip, says that, JT, it was my fault. She sent it to me. I should have got it in, and I didn't. My phone was dead, and I had 9,000. He keeps telling me how he has 9,742 unopened emails. Like everyone else doesn't have that also. It's all spam. But anyway, you know, this is always an excuse why something did happen. But, you know, this is the beauty of 2 hours, okay? Because I could take a few minutes to connect with our audience and let them know that we can fool around with each other here, poke a little fun. I mean, if you watch the show with any sort of regularity, you know almost every day there's a clip of John Domenico dressed up like Donald Trump making fun of my hairline. And, you know, without the magic of television and all these products and shellac that I have, I think my hairline actually deserves a little abuse every so often, but there's nothing I can do about it. You know what I mean? But so anyway, Rob Taub is a great guest. The former Grand Master of the Knights of Columbus has joined us on social media. One Michael McHugh, great friend, big supporter of Scott Lebedo. We got to get Scott Lebedo back on. He opened up a new art gallery. He's one of the only conservative artists in the world, and he makes these beautiful flags and paintings and stuff. And he opened the gallery here in New York, and it's killing it. We should have Scott on and see how many people are buying patriotic stuff. Mary Ann's with us. Carl is there. Carl likes the 2 hours too. And, you know, I want to hear from you guys also. If there's anything more you want to see on the show, let me know. If there's anything less you want to see on the show, let me know. If you think I should terminate Nico again, let me know. We'll see. You know what I mean? I actually can't terminate him because Jess proved today under pressure she's going to fold like a cheap suit. So, you know, we don't have a replacement. She's taking it hard today. She's really taking it hard. Yesterday, she had her hair all blown out because they were going to do like a photo shoot with Pavlina and Jade, and these young girls do these TikTok photo shoots now. And she was all cool because she had her hair perfectly straightened. And now today she's all curly again, so I guess she's spicy. And maybe they had a rough night last night. Maybe that's why she wasn't up to the... Was it a rough night? Were there multiple White Claws going down? There were. It was a White Claw kind of evening. All right, fine. Now I understand. And we all have bad days. I've come to the show a few times, let's call it many times, where Liquid Lunch turned into Liquid Dinner, and then Liquid Dinner turned into Liquid After Hours, and then, you know, by the time I wake up in the morning, my head is like 1,000 pounds. My stomach is gargling. I got to wolf down 2 bacon, egg, and cheeses to get some grease in my belly to calm things down. You know, sometimes, you know, maybe you drink a little too much and you can't perform at your peak. I don't know. I mean, I always go by the old adage, good players play hurt. So even if I'm a little under the weather, I try to like double down and suck it up. But, you know, not everyone can do that. My good buddy Frank Morano is going to be heard, for those of you in the New York City area. He's now moved to 77 WABC radio, heard here in New York, the strongest signal in New York on the AM dial, if you ask me. One of the great stations, New York City mayoral candidate John Catsimatidis, great entrepreneur, is the owner of WABC now. And this Saturday night, you can hear Frank Morano reunited, and it feels so good, with his old partner Curtis Slewa, founder of the Guardian Angels and one of the voices of New York for many, many, many decades now. Frank and Curtis, Saturday night on the 4th of July, 77 WABC Radio, WABCRadio.com, for the All-American Hour to celebrate our independence. We're going to leave it at that for today, and we'll be back to wrap up the week tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, more Liquid Lunch.
5, 4, 3, 2...
The arugula pie, white arugula pie with fresh grated Parmesan. This is the margarita pie, it's beauty. This is the clam pie, the Nino's